Do you want to be fun, charming, and irresistible? I have no idea how to do that. Call likematch.com. But if you want to learn how to write irresistible emails, you are in luck. Welcome to the session on how to write irresistible emails using the push-pull method. My name is Becc Holland. I'm the head of sales development at Chorus.ai. Why don't we start with the definition between push and pull? Push is to exert force on an object or someone where the goal is to move something away from you. A pull, however, is to exert force again on an object where the goal is to move it closer to you. So when the average person thinks about a sales rep, they think about someone who is pushy or overly aggressive. It's because they're doing things like this. They're trying to push a deal across the line. They're trying to enforce their agenda on someone. They're trying to book a meeting, but the agenda is all about them and what they need. Whereas if someone is pulling away, then they give the opportunity to the prospect to lean in. So from a high level, in every situation, whether that's writing an email, whether that's doing a cold call, always the goal is balance. So just to be clear, I'm not saying to never enforce an agenda on someone. If you always pull away from your prospect, then that's great. You'll build a great relationship, but you'll never get the deal done. If you're always pushy on your prospect and trying to get the deal done or get them to sign, then they'll get the wrong connotation about who you are and want to naturally push away from you. So today, we're going to unpack how you combine both of these principles to combine and get a balance that makes you irresistible to your prospect. The first example that I want to do, there are 4 lines for every email that we're writing over here at Chorus. The goal of the first line is going to, just from a high level, you can watch Personalization at Scale to get the structure of an email. But the goal of the first line is going to be telling your prospect why you're reaching out and making it all about them. The goal of the second line is to paint a reality of what your company does in relation to the first line, of like tying the relevance of their buyer persona into the personalization reason that you mapped out in the first line. The third line is to ask for a CTA, what we call a CTA, which is a call to action where you're asking them for time to unpack what you talked about in the beginning of your email. And then the last line, you're going to do what's called the pull away method. So in terms of the infrastructure, you want to go pull, push, push, pull. So basically in the first line of your email here, you're pulling away from your prospect because basically you're stroking their ego. You're telling them the reason for your outreach is that you loved their post, you liked their comment, you liked their article, you loved their webinar, but you're picking out a highly personalized reason of something that they did, something that they said, something that they engaged with that really made you think that it was a good idea to reach out and they might find value from your product. You know, always want to predicate it on personalization, and whenever you do personalize to your prospect, it's more of a pull flavor because you're telling them that their work, you noticed it, that it caught you off guard, and that you really found value from it. Full disclosure, asterisk mark, always be genuine. Find the work that they wrote, find an article, webinar that they did where they did something really special and try to make it as genuine as possible. So in sales a lot, it's about the kind of person you are behind the curtain. That's what people are attracted to, is when someone is real and authentic. So I always try to look for something that they did that you really liked. So I think, off record, that we can learn something from every single person that we meet. So try to find the thing that they did, wrote, said, article, webinar, post, engage content that they engaged with online that really meant something to you and hooked you that you learned from. So pull in the first line by basically, telling them that there was a personalized reason. The second line, you're going to transition and you're going to go more on what's called the offensive. So basically in the second line, you're going into more of a parochial, old school sales technique where you're painting a picture of what a world could look like if they were using something like you. So in the second line, you would say, what if you could blank without blank and blank as a result? So I'll give you a good example. You could say the reason for my outreach is I loved your article, Selling Effectively. One line that really stood out to me was, when it comes to selling effectively, it all comes down to personalization. What if you could personalize without spending the time to do it and bump your meetings and conversion as a result? So again, in this line, your prospect is going to realize that you're going a little bit on the offensive, what Chris Voss would call a yes trap, of you're kind of queuing up the email for what you want within the third line. So this is more of a push technique. Again, don't be afraid to use some kind of direct line or some kind of pushy flavor, as long as it's balanced out within the email, so you seem like you are after you not only seem like, you are after the prospect's best interest. The third line, you're going to go push again. So you're going to say something like, this is going to be the call to action where you're asking for what you want out of the email. So a line that we use here at Chorus a lot is, if you give me a shot, Wednesday at 3, we pick one time to unpack how, and I have titles written here, how VPs of sales, decrease onboarding and ramp time and increase quota attainment as a result of our product. I promise we can part ways if you're not impressed. So again, this is in a very light fashion, but being very direct, saying that you need time Wednesday at 3 to unpack the agenda that's in this third line. So they'll get the flavor from these lines 2 and 3 that you are pushing for something and that you want something of them, within this barter situation. And then the last line, and I would argue the most important line, is the final pull line on the end. A lot of reps and a lot of sales methodologies that I've seen out there will teach you that you need to end on a question. Your prospects don't forget what you want, is what I would argue back. So you want to leave them on a note of, you are always after their best interests either way, and I lead with the term either way. That either way, you are so impressed with their content. Either way, you're a big fan of their team. Either way, you really like their company. You hope that they're having a good Q3, and you hope that they are driving more quota attainment. So you can pick whatever these back reasons are of either way. You just want to wish them good wishes. What that does to your prospect is, in the last moments of the game, you are saying either way, whether you meet with me or not, I just want to let you know that I'm a big fan of your team, and I hope you're having a happy new year and strong start to Q1. You're giving them a flavor that in any case scenario, even if they respond to you or they don't, that you wish well to them. I think it's really important to balance this email out, because you pushed in the midsection, that you want to have a finishing note where you're backing up, so it makes your prospects really compelled to respond and want to say something back to you. So again, from a high level, this example, you're going to start with a pull technique where you say the reason for my outreach is, again, watch the Personalization at Scale webinar. The reason for my outreach, for example, is I loved your article on selling effectively. One line that stood out to me is, it all comes down to personalization. What if you could personalize more quickly without spending the time to have to spend 5 minutes on everyone's LinkedIn profile and drive more meetings as a result? If you give me a shot Wednesday at 3 to unpack how heads of sales development are booking more meetings using Course.ai, I promise we can part ways if you're not impressed. Either way, I'm such a big fan of your team. What you're doing in the sales community is so impactful, and I hope you're having a strong start to Q1. So that is a very high-level introductory email that I do to a lot of prospects. A lot of people in the sales community are looking for that one magic bullet. That one magic pill that they can swallow to get 6-minute abs, that one subject line that gets all the responses, and that one thing that they can say on a cold call to book more meetings. When it comes down to losing weight, for example, it comes down to a lot of different variables. How much water are you drinking? How much sleep are you getting? What kinds of foods are you eating? How much of that food are you eating? And how much are you working out? And when it comes to having really good practice within cold emails and cold calls, it's the same exact principle. So I think it's very important here that we are learning the technique, but how it looks can be up to you. That's the great part about sales, is we're not all the same and we say things really differently. So I want to be very careful that you just don't deploy a certain script and that you become you in the process, and that you're all that you relate it in your terms so that it comes off as more authentic and more true to yourself. So the second example of how you can do the pull, push, push, pull technique is you could start off with, the reason for my email is I couldn't get enough of your article on LinkedIn where you unpacked how to scale teams effectively. One line that really stood out to me was, it all comes down to great conversations. So again, in this first line, you're pulling back. You're saying, instead of saying I love something, you're saying I couldn't get enough of blank, blank, the article, the post that they mentioned, the post that they shared, etc. And you're giving one little tidbit about that post. I think this is an important asterisk mark. When it comes down to personalizing, when it comes down to telling someone that you really liked their work, in this day and age, a lot of people are faking it. They're saying, I really liked your podcast, but then they're not tuning in. So I think it's really important to your prospect that they are going to try and push on whether you actually watch something, because they want to be able to believe you. They want to see if it's authentic or not. So I think including a line that stood out to you will do an instrumental amount for your game here. But again, the flavor here from a high level is that you're pulling back, and how you're doing that is by you're stroking the prospect's ego, talking about how awesome they are and something they did that, again, genuinely really impressed you, so that you're not pushing your own agenda on them. You're really starting with something and leading with something that was all about them. The second line is I would go into what's called a push mode. So you would say, I have an idea on how you could blank without blank. So you tell me what your buyer persona, your value prop is, but for instance, you could say, like, I have an idea in my first line. If I said reason for my emails, I couldn't get enough of your article on scaling teams effectively. One line that really stood out to me was it all comes down to having great conversations. I have an idea on how you can ensure that your reps are all having great conversations with all the prospects that you work hard to acquire over at Terminus. Third line, you're going to go into another push technique where you're going to ask for what you want. So again, this is the CTA line. So I usually say something like, if you give me a chance to meet you and unpack that idea, I promise that we can split our ways. I promise I won't jam your inbox with follow-up if you don't think that it's a fit. So again, same kind of technique as the first time that we did it, where you said, if you give me a shot to unpack how VPs of sales drive more quota attainment, you would say, if you give me a chance to meet you and share an idea on how you could, ensure your reps are having great conversations, I promise that I won't jam your inbox with follow-up if you don't think that we're a fit. And then the last line, again, if you're doing a pull and then you're doing a push and a push, you need to end with a pull. So more so at a high level, this is about balance more than anything. I prefer ending on a pull because I think it gives this wonderful flavor in your prospect's mouth that the last thing that you are doing is you had the esteem and you value your product and yourself enough that you let them know that even if they don't want to book a meeting with you, even if they don't want to sign on the dotted line, even if they don't want to buy your product, even if they don't want to become a customer or a marquee customer for you, that you still value their work. I think that, again, relates back to this principle of being genuine. If you really liked their work, if you really liked their article, if you learned a lot from their post that they made the other day, then it's okay if they don't buy your product because you already got the value from whatever they shared. So in this last line, I say, instead of saying either way, I say, in any case, your work is so impactful in the community, and I'd really love to be connected here. Or any case, your work is, is affecting the people around you, and I hope that your team is having a strong start to the quarter. Again, you can vary this language. If you're going to do this as a follow-up email to email one, I think it's very important that you change up the language. Again, it's just about a technique, but you can change up the language. So that's why saying either way and in any case is essentially saying the same thing. But you want to make sure your prospects feel like they're not on a structure, because they'll start to be repulsed because they won't think that it's genuine. So again, in example 2, you would start with with a pull. Reason for my emails: I couldn't get enough of your article on selling effectively. One line that stood out to me was, it all comes down to great conversations. Then you go into a push. I have an idea on how you could scale your teams more effectively or sell more effectively and ensure that your reps are getting the best talk tracks across to your prospects as possible. Third line is a push. If you give me a chance to meet you and share that idea with you, in person, I promise that I will not jam your inbox with follow-up if you're not impressed or don't think it's a fit. And then you end with a pull. In any case, your work is so impactful in the sales community, and I hope that your team is is humming along in the beginning of 2020. So that's it, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the push-pull method and how to write irresistible emails, and I hope you have either way. I hope you have a great rest of your day.